Hi everyone, it's Dr. Ramani. Welcome back to this YouTube channel on narcissism, narcissistic relationships, and healing from narcissistic relationships. We're back to our series on your personality and how it shows up when you're in a narcissistic relationship. Today we're talking about extroversion. We've already talked about other styles, but today's about extroversion. Now, if you've watched other videos in this series, you can go ahead and jump ahead because the introduction's kind of the same. I don't want you to think you've seen this video before. So this is an important one. And so go ahead and skip ahead if you want, just to the meat of the video. But if you're new to this series, you may want to listen to this first part. So in this series on your personality and narcissistic abuse, we're going to take on the big 5 personality traits: neuroticism, which we've talked about, extroversion, welcome, agreeableness, openness, and conscientiousness. And there's even going to be a little bonus video on a personality style I don't think we talk about enough. You just have to keep staying tuned for that. But we're going to lay out how these styles may put you at risk for a narcissistic relationship, how your particular personality style may affect your experience in a narcissistic relationship, and how your personality style may even affect your healing process. Now, there are internet versions of this Big 5 test. Some of them you might find out there are called the Ocean test. Some are called the Big 5. They are rough versions. They're not the real thing, which you can only get through a licensed psychologist. But the rough version can kind of give you at least a sketch of what it looks like. The Big 5 test measures what we call normal personality and not more maladaptive personality styles like narcissism. But think of these as a spectrum. For any of these, if you have an ultra low score, then you're low in that quality. If you have an ultra high score, you're high in it. Too low or too high may be indicative of too little or too much of a thing, and even too much of what seems like a good thing, like agreeableness, can put you at risk. We'll get into these specifics as we discuss each specific trait. Every one of us has our one highest trait, and then we go down from there. And when we look at how all of this hangs together, we can sort of get our own personality snapshot. Those middle scores, which is where a lot of us sit, those scores in the average range, is sort of the expected range. Just enough neuroticism to worry when it's warranted, just enough agreeableness to get along with everybody, but not so much that you're dysregulated or very anxious, an example of neuroticism. So these personality styles in you can have a lot to do with your experience in narcissistic relationships. Now, we've already taken on neuroticism. We're going to take them all on, but today we're going to talk about extroversion. So let's just start in the middle, that moderate, maybe moderate high level of extroversion. Let me tell you, you extroverts have it all made in the shade. Things look good. Extroversion is characterized by higher energy. People who have that solid level of extroversion are sociable, warm, assertive. They're active in the world. They're excitement seeking, and they tend to have more positive emotions. These can be upbeat people who have large social circles. They like attention. They're the ones who talk in class. They talk in meetings. They talk in social groups. They're up for anything. They tend to have lots of friends and acquaintances. That's that healthy range, moderate, even to the moderate high range. That's what extroversion looks like. Now, at the lower end, very low end of extroversion, and this is where things get a little bit tricky in my estimation, is introversion. Introverted people tend to be more quiet, less energetic, not so attention-seeking. They take a minute before they speak. They definitely do not seek out large social gatherings as a baseline. They'll still go. It's just not their strength. Introverts aren't shy. They're not socially anxious. They just don't thrive off of social stimulation, which is in contrast to the extroverted folks who almost need the social stimulation. This can give introverts a bad reputation as standoffish, aloof, too much in their heads, and as boring. And I'm going to own it. I'm a little defensive when it comes to introversion because I'm introverted. Much as I sit here and yammer at you on YouTube, I'm very introverted. I'll go to a party, I'll have fun at a party, but I don't need the party. I'll come home probably on the earlier side and be very tired. TV at home is usually more than enough for me. It's often enough for many introverts. I have a team member on my team who she's an introvert, and she actually has a really interesting life. She goes to lectures, she goes to concerts, she goes to classes, but she sticks to her smaller social group. So that's, again, very in the world, but introverted. So let's stick to extroversion now. So what about those very high levels of extroversion? They can't be alone. They have to have people around to a fault. They're attention seeking. They have to be the center of attention. They need to be the one who is heard. I think you see where this is going. Narcissism researcher Delroy Paulus calls narcissistic people disagreeable extroverts. And we know narcissism is in fact correlated with higher levels of extroversion. But nothing is ever simple in the personality space. And our vulnerable, covert narcissistic folks, they tend to be more introverted. Here's the thing, introversion is such a big topic, maybe it's selfish, that I'm going to give it its own video. So we'll break down the introversion because it does have impacts on the introverts and narcissistic relationship. So you may be wondering, can extroversion actually put you at risk for getting into a narcissistic relationship? Hell yeah. The extroverts may be more drawn to a person who is already at the center of the crowd, who may be, the extroverts may be more often likely to be in crowds where the narcissistic folks are. They may actually really enjoy the wild ride that the grandiosity takes you on. The extroverts may be down with all the excitement and all the positive emotionality. Means that you would be willing as an extrovert to see their narcissistic behavior in a kinder way and maybe even make more excuses for it. And let me tell you, narcissistic people love other extroverts. They love the upbeat social energy, the up for anything vibe, the positivity. So you're at a moderate high level of extroversion. You're probably more likely to meet folks with narcissistic personalities and for them to really like you. So now let's say you're an extrovert, you get into a narcissistic relationship. How is this going to affect you? Here is where it gets really interesting. You may actually be quite upbeat, even as the unhealthy stuff is happening in the relationship. You may also still have a strong support network that allows you to remain relatively resilient in the face of the narcissistic behavior. But if we are talking about more severe narcissistic abuse that is protracted for a long time, you may find that your extroversion slowly gets silenced and turned off. There just simply isn't enough room for both of you to get attention. Many narcissistic people are jealous, so they may not even be okay with you speaking out or people noticing you. So you, to stay in the relationship, may very subtly start turning yourself off. This can make the narcissistic abuse feel worse because you may feel cut off from the world, which you really enjoy. You might be cut off from the energy of other people and realize that you're giving up that part of yourself that likes to be in the world just to keep the relationship going. If you were more extroverted, naturally extroverted as a child, and you had narcissistic parents, you may find that having a narcissistic parent silenced this inherent part of you and your personality. And while you may have enjoyed large groups and friends and that energy, you may find that your wings were clipped in childhood. Narcissistic people, whether they are parents, friends, partners, colleagues, they do not like to share the stage. So what if you also have a very high level of extroversion? Now, remember, high extroversion, we may see more antagonistic stuff like narcissism, people who need attention, people who really cannot be alone. If that's you, it could also mean that in a narcissistic relationship, arguments get volatile, with both of you competing for attention. And you may also find it harder to leave because you don't want to be alone. But again, this is at very high levels of extroversion, which is probably not most people watching this channel. And what about as you get out of a narcissistic relationship? I actually think that the healthy, those moderate, low-high extroverts who come out of a narcissistic relationship may be very well positioned to heal. As you slowly give permission back to your natural personality, you may be more likely and drawn to seek out other people, to be in groups, and to get socially active. However, no matter who it happens to, narcissistic abuse is not easy to recover from, and the fallout is painful. So this is not to say that extroverted people don't suffer. They absolutely do. But extroverts may have some inherent temperamental stuff that makes some of the things that you need to do to heal come more naturally. Extroverts get into relationships with narcissistic people all the time. And it can be a really devastating moment when it does come crashing down because because you have such positivity because of your extroversion. It kind of challenges your sort of the worldview that extroverts have of the world. But I'm going to be brutally honest. This is a Dr. Ramani moment here. Just like I envy people who can dance, play the guitar, and who cook really well, I really also envy extroverts. When I watch an extrovert go through a room and not get depleted and just be able to be on, I'm like, ooh, I wish I could do that. It's a really good skill to have. The Western world is very extrovert friendly. My graduate student, Irene, found that extroverts look better on a lot of mental health outcomes and just functioning overall. But I'm always going to be the standard bearer for all the virtues of introversion. However, I do believe that healthy extroverts, while they are vulnerable to getting drawn into narcissistic relationships, after the initial and difficult part of healing passes, have some great tools that will help them work through the healing process. So you extroverts out there kind of have some extroversion envy over here, but doesn't protect you. If anything, it makes you more vulnerable on the front end. So be on your game, have that positivity, but above all, what extroverts need is discernment. Thanks again.